All right, let's dive deep today, and we're going to be exploring Hestia,
Okay.
the Greek goddess of the hearth and the home.
Sounds cozy.
Right. Now, you might be thinking, hearth? That sounds a little bit,
Mundane.
yeah, a little bit mundane, but trust me, there's a really fascinating story here.
I believe it.
And we're going to unearth it together using excerpts from the Wikipedia article on Hestia.
Excellent source.
Yeah, so think of this deep dive as kind of like solving a mystery.
Okay.
Hestia is a puzzle.
Right.
She's very central to Greek life, but she's curiously absent from, like, their epic tales.
Interesting.
So let's see if we can kind of crack this case.
I love it.
And in the process, maybe we'll discover something about ourselves.
You've hit on something really intriguing there.
Yeah.
The fact that Hestia, this goddess, so intertwined with the everyday lives of the Greeks,
Right.
she doesn't take center stage in their myths.
Yeah.
That's definitely a clue worth following.
Exactly. It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
What were the ancient Greeks trying to tell us about the nature of power and stability?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even the balance between the ordinary and the extraordinary.
Big questions.
Right.
Let's start by laying the groundwork.
Okay.
So we know Hestia is one of the 12 Olympians,
Yes.
which puts her right up there with Zeus,
Hera.
Hera,
Yep.
the rest of the A-list deities.
My big names.
Exactly.
Right.
And like a lot of them, her family history is,
A bit messy.
yeah, a bit, shall we say, complicated.
Right. We're talking Titan's Cronus swallowing his children whole.
Oh, yeah.
Zeus leading a rebellion to free his siblings.
Classic Greek myth.
I know it's enough to make anyone need some family therapy.
Indeed.
Yes.
And Hestia's birth order within this whole dramatic family saga.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of adds another layer to this whole puzzle.
Okay.
So Cronus swallowed her first,
Right.
yet she was the last to be disgorged.
Wow.
The Homeric hymn to Aphrodite even alludes to this,
Okay.
making her technically both the oldest and the youngest.
Okay, so that's a pretty big paradox. Right off the bat.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if the Greeks were trying to tell us something about her embodying both wisdom and a fresh perspective.
Could be.
Maybe. But before we get too carried away with interpretations, what about her name? Does Hestia give us any hints?
Well, her very name, Hestia, means hearth.
Okay.
And this isn't just a label, this is a statement. The Greeks saw her as intrinsically linked to the foundation of their lives.
Okay.
Think about it. The hearth was the heart of the ancient Greek home.
Yeah, you're right. It's where families gathered meals, were prepared, stories were shared.
Exactly.
It provided warmth, literal and metaphorical, in a world that could be pretty harsh and unpredictable.
Right, and in that sense, Hestia becomes more than just a goddess of the hearth.
Yeah.
She embodies the very essence of home, family, and community.
Wow.
She represents that grounding force that allows life to flourish even amidst chaos.
This is starting to make sense, but there's one more piece of the puzzle I'm curious about. The Wikipedia article states that Hestia chose to remain a virgin goddess.
Yes.
Now, this seems like a big deal, especially in a pantheon where gods and goddesses were, shall we say, known for their romantic escapades.
This detail is crucial.
Yeah.
And it further emphasizes her dedication to her role.
Okay.
Even Aphrodite, the goddess of love herself,
Right.
had no power over Hestia's decision,
Wow.
as the Homeric hymn to Aphrodite makes clear.
So even the goddess of love couldn't sway her.
Nope.
I mean, we're talking about a goddess who could make even the most stoic of gods weak in the knees.
Precisely.
Wow.
And this unwavering commitment wasn't just a matter of personal preference.
Right.
It speaks to a deeper understanding of Hestia's role.
Okay.
Her power lies in her steadfastness, in her unwavering dedication to the hearth.
I'm beginning to see a pattern here.
Yes.
Hestia is all about stability, continuity, and devotion to a higher purpose.
Exactly.
It's almost like she's the bedrock of Mount Olympus.
I like that.
The quiet force that ensures everything else can function.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah.
You've captured the essence of her being.
Awesome.
She's the anchor in the storm, the still point in a turning world.
Which, when you think about it, is quite a powerful position to hold.
It is.
It's not about flashy displays of power
Right.
or meddling in human affairs.
No.
It's about providing that essential foundation upon which everything else rests.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that foundation wasn't limited to Mount Olympus.
Right.
It extended outwards into every home, every hearth in the Greek world.
Right. And this brings us to the question of how Hestia's influence manifested in the daily lives of the Greeks.
Exactly. So Let's dive into the specifics of her worship,
Okay.
her sanctuaries,
Right.
and how her presence was felt in every corner of ancient Greek society.
I am ready to get even deeper into this mystery.
Good.
Hestia is proving to be a much more intriguing figure than I initially imagined.
I think you're going to be surprised.
Okay, so we've established that Hestia's influence went way beyond Mount Olympus
It did.
and touched every hearth in the Greek world.
Mm-hmm.
But how did this actually, play out? Did people build grand temples to her? Offer elaborate sacrifices? What did everyday worship of Hestia actually look like?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Remember, Hestia's domain was the hearth,
Right?
and every home had one.
Yeah.
So in a sense, every hearth was a miniature temple to Hestia.
So no need to, build a Parthenon for her.
Exactly.
She already had a sacred space in every single home.
She was already there.
Wow.
And this speaks volumes about how deeply embedded she was in Greek culture.
Yeah.
It wasn't about grand gestures or public displays.
Right.
It was about those daily rituals and acts of devotion within the intimacy of the home.
Okay, so I'm picturing a family gathered around the hearth.
Okay.
What kind of rituals would they perform to honor Hestia?
Well, the Wikipedia article mentions that the first and last libations at feasts were always offered to Hestia.
So she bookended every important gathering.
Yeah.
I love that. It reinforces this idea of her as a constant presence, watching over the family and ensuring their well-being.
Precisely. And it wasn't just about the offering itself.
Right.
Imagine the act of pouring that first libation into the fire. It was a moment of quiet reflection, a recognition of Hestia's role in their lives. And the last libation was almost like a thank you.
Yeah.
A way of acknowledging her continued blessings.
It's amazing how these seemingly small gestures repeated day after day created this powerful sense of connection to the divine.
It is.
It makes me think about my own daily rituals and how they shape my own sense of self and purpose.
It's powerful.
Yeah. But I have to ask, what happened if the hearth fire went out? Was that like a major faux pas in ancient Greece?
You're spot on.
Brilliant.
Letting the hearth fire die, whether intentionally or accidentally, was considered a serious offense against Hestia.
Wow.
It was seen as disrupting the harmony of the home
Okay.
and inviting misfortune.
Wow, that's some serious fire safety. Makes you think twice about letting your campfire dwindle, right?
Right.
But if every home was a sanctuary for Hestia, were there any dedicated temples built in her honor?
There were, but they were far less common than temples dedicated to other deities.
Okay.
The article lists a few examples: Hermione, Sparta, Olympia.
So not quite the same level of architectural grandeur as, say, the Temple of Zeus at Olympia.
Not at all.
Okay.
And that makes sense when you think about Hestia's role.
Right.
She was already present in every home.
Yeah.
A grand temple, while a beautiful gesture, wasn't as essential to her worship.
It's almost as if she transcended the need for physical structures.
Yeah.
Her presence was so fundamental, so woven into the fabric of daily life that she couldn't be confined to a single space.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
And speaking of transcending boundaries, there's a fascinating detail about Hestia's role in the founding of new colonies.
Okay.
When a new settlement was established, a flame from Hestia's public hearth in the mother city would be carried to the new location.
Oh, so it wasn't just about packing up your belongings and setting sail.
Right.
They were bringing a piece of their spiritual home with them.
Exactly.
Ensuring that Hestia's presence, her blessings, would continue in this new land.
Precisely, that flame represented continuity.
Right.
A connection to their shared past and their identity as a people. And by establishing Hestia's hearth in their new polis, they were symbolically laying the foundation for a thriving community.
I'm starting to see how Hestia, despite being a relatively quote-unquote quiet goddess, played a surprisingly active role in shaping Greek society.
She really did.
Yeah.
And her influence extended beyond the realm of daily life into their literature and mythology.
You're right. The Wikipedia article mentions 2 Homeric hymns dedicated to Hestia.
Yes.
What can those tell us about how the Greeks viewed her?
Well, the first hymn is quite short, only 5 lines, and focuses on her connection to Apollo at Delphi.
All right.
It describes her tending to his holy house with oil dripping from her locks as she performs her duties.
Okay, that's a vivid image.
It is.
I can almost smell the fragrant oil and feel the warmth of the hearth fire.
Yeah.
It speaks to Hestia's dedication, her humility, and her quiet strength.
Exactly. And then there's the second hymn,
Okay.
which is longer and invokes both Hestia and Hermes.
Okay.
This hymn emphasizes Hestia's role at banquets,
Huh?
highlighting that the first and last offerings were made to her.
There's that book ending again.
I know it's a recurring theme.
It really emphasizes her role as a guardian, ensuring that everything begins and ends in a state of balance and harmony.
Exactly.
But why Hermes? What's his connection to Hestia?
Well, Hermes was the messenger god,
Right.
known for his quick wit, his eloquence, and his ability to move freely between realms.
Mm-hmm.
Some scholars suggest that this hymn might be highlighting the interconnectedness
Okay.
of the domestic sphere represented by Hestia
Uh-huh.
and the wider world represented by Hermes.
Interesting. It's like they're acknowledging that what happens in the home has ripple effects on the community and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even the most private acts of devotion can have public significance.
Precisely. And the article mentions other literary references as well,
Oh, really?
including works by Bacchylides Pindar and even a military oath from Acharnae.
Wow.
It seems Hestia's influence extended to every facet of Greek society, from the home to the battlefield.
This just reinforces how deeply ingrained she was in their culture.
It does.
She wasn't just a hearth goddess.
Right.
She was a fundamental force shaping their values, their rituals, and their understanding of the world. It's amazing how this figure, often overlooked in the grand narratives of Greek mythology,
Right.
turns out to be so central to their lives.
She's essential.
Yeah.
And that centrality wasn't limited to the Greeks.
What do you mean?
Remember their Roman counterparts?
Oh, yeah.
They, too, recognized the power of the hearth and the goddess who embodied it.
You're talking about Vesta, right?
That's exactly.
I remember learning about the Vestal Virgins, those priestesses who tended to the sacred fire in her temple in Rome.
Yeah.
Talk about a dedicated group.
Absolutely. The Romans clearly saw the value in maintaining this tradition that originated with the Greeks.
Yeah.
They understood the symbolic importance of the hearth fire and the goddess who represented it.
It makes you wonder why the hearth,
Mm-hmm.
this seemingly simple element of everyday life,
Right.
held such profound significance for both the Greeks and the Romans.
I know, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. What was it about that fire that captivated their imaginations and inspired such devotion?
It's a question worth pondering. Was it the life-giving warmth it provided,
Mm-hmm.
the sense of community it fostered,
Yeah.
or perhaps it was the symbolic representation of the eternal flame,
Right.
a connection to something larger than themselves?
Wow.
Whatever the reason, it's clear that the hearth fire and the goddess who embodied it played a vital role in shaping these ancient cultures.
And it seems the Romans, like the Greeks, added their own unique spin to the story of the hearth goddess.
They did?
The article mentions a rather unusual tale recounted by Ovid
Oh, yes.
in his poem Fasti.
Ah, yes. The story of Vesta and Priapus.
Okay.
It's a rather dramatic departure from the Greek narratives of Hestia's unwavering virginity.
Really?
Ovid describes an incident where Vesta is nearly raped by Priapus, the god of fertility.
Wow, that's a far cry from the serene and steadfast Hestia we've been discussing.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And it raises some interesting questions about how the Romans viewed female deities.
Okay.
Their vulnerability and the potential for disruption, even within the seemingly stable realm of the hearth.
It seems that even the most enduring symbols can be reinterpreted and reshaped to fit the cultural context.
They can.
But before we get too sidetracked by Roman reinterpretations, let's circle back to Hestia
Okay.
and consider what her story ultimately tells us.
I think you've hit on a crucial point. It's time to pull back from the specifics and consider the broader implications of Hestia's enduring presence in both Greek and Roman culture.
I'm ready to synthesize all this information and see what insights we can glean from Hestia's story. What does it all mean?
Let's move to the final part of our deep dive and unpack the key takeaways from Hestia's intriguing tale.
Okay, so we've explored the myths and the rituals and the temples, even the near rape by a fertility god.
It's been a journey.
I have to say Hestia is turning out to be a much more complex and fascinating figure
She is.
than I initially thought.
I told her.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are the key takeaways we should be mulling over? What does Hestia's story ultimately tell us about the ancient Greeks?
Wow.
And maybe even about ourselves?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is this idea that true strength
Okay.
doesn't always have to manifest in these grand displays of power or epic battles.
Right.
Sometimes it's found in that quiet, unwavering dedication to a purpose, to providing that essential foundation upon which everything else can flourish.
It's like she's the root system of a tree.
I like that.
You might not always see it, but without it, the tree wouldn't stand tall and bear fruit.
Precisely. Hestia embodies that grounding force, that sense of stability and continuity
Right.
that allows life to thrive amidst chaos.
Yeah. And for the ancient Greeks, that stability wasn't just some abstract concept.
Right.
It had very real practical implications.
Absolutely.
Right. The hearth fire was essential for warmth, for cooking,
Yes.
for bringing people together.
For sure.
It represented the heart of the home, the well-being of the family, the very survival of the community.
And Hestia's unwavering presence ensured that those essential needs were met.
Yeah.
She was the guardian of the hearth, both literally and figuratively,
Right.
a constant reminder that even amidst the storms of life,
Okay.
there's a safe haven, a place of warmth and belonging.
And that sense of belonging wasn't limited to the physical space of the home. It extended outwards to the community, to the polis, even to new settlements founded far from the motherland.
Exactly.
Remember that tradition of carrying a flame from Hestia's public hearth to new colonies?
Such a powerful image.
I know, it wasn't just about transporting a fire.
No.
It was about carrying with them the essence of their shared history, their identity, their values.
Their roots.
It was a way of ensuring that Hestia's presence, her blessings, would continue to guide and protect them in this new land.
It was a beautiful way to stay connected.
Yeah, it's almost as if they were creating a spiritual umbilical cord,
I like that.
connecting them back to their roots even as they ventured into the unknown.
And by establishing Hestia's hearth in their new polis, they were laying the groundwork for a thriving community.
Right.
A place where those values of stability, harmony, and interconnectedness could take root and flourish.
You've captured the essence beautifully.
Thank you.
Hestia's influence was both subtle and profound.
It was.
She wasn't a goddess of epic battles or dramatic love affairs.
Right.
Her power lay in her quiet, steadfast presence.
In her unwavering commitment to the well-being of the community. It's ironic, isn't it? This goddess, who is rarely mentioned in the grand narratives of Greek mythology, turns out to be the one holding everything together.
Yeah.
The one ensuring that the home fires keep burning, both literally and metaphorically.
It is beautiful irony.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to reconsider our own assumptions about power, about strength, and what it truly means to make a lasting impact on the world.
Okay.
Perhaps like Hestia, it's about tending to those essential foundations, cultivating those spaces of warmth, connection, and belonging that allow us to weather the storms and emerge stronger on the other side.
So in a way, Hestia is like a timeless figure.
She is.
Her concerns are our concerns.
That's exactly.
The need for stability, for connection, for a sense of belonging. These are universal human needs that transcend time and culture.
Absolutely. And while our hearths might look different today,
Yeah.
the essence of what she represents remains as relevant as ever.
It's about cultivating those spaces, both physical and emotional,
Right.
where we feel safe, grounded, and connected to something larger than ourselves.
I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time.
I hope so.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the often overlooked power of the ordinary, the everyday acts of devotion that create a ripple effect of positive change.
And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for you to ponder.
All right, hit me.
In today's world, where everything seems to be moving at warp speed,
Yeah.
where technology constantly disrupts our routines and pulls us in a million different directions,
Yeah.
how can we reconnect with that Hestian energy? How can we create those spaces of stillness, of presence, of mindful attention to the things that truly nourish and sustain us?
Wow. That's a powerful question to end on. It makes me think about the rituals I practice, the connections I nurture, the ways in which I tend to my own hearth, both literally and figuratively. Yeah. I think perhaps the answer lies in finding those small, everyday acts of devotion, those moments of quiet reflection, those gestures of care and connection that remind us of what truly matters. And maybe, just maybe, by tending to our own inner flames, we can help to spread that warmth and light outwards, creating a more harmonious and interconnected world.
Beautifully said. And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into the world of Hestia.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure.
This has been really eye-opening, and I hope it's been just as insightful for you, our listeners.
May her story inspire you to find your own ways of tending to the hearth, both within yourself and in the world around you.
Absolutely. And be sure to join us next time as we explore another fascinating figure from history or mythology. Until then, keep those home fires burning.
Tell us what you think about this episode. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.